All right, so the Leafs lost again yesterday. That's not true. What do you mean that's not true? You know the Leafs were the ones wearing white, right? No, it's just that it's 1:15 in the morning when you're recording this. So, you silly goose, the Leafs lost today. Let's go! It starts with an A and ends with anxiety. Off the charts levels of passion. That's just a nightmare. With you wherever you are, welcome to LFR. If you're feeling guilty about not staying up for that game, don't. Leafs lose 5-2 to the Seattle Kraken in Seattle to kick off their 4-game Western road trip and lose their 6th straight game. Hey, remember when the Leafs were like just outside of a playoff spot? Hey, remember when the Leafs were in a playoff spot? For anyone who's confused why we're talking about selling, right here, look at the standings. Here they are. The Leafs are second last place in the East. Now, I don't know if last place in the East is going to be attainable because the Rangers, they're prolific. But if you have aspirations of making the playoffs, the Leafs got to get one of the 2 wildcard spots. The Buffalo Sabres are 3rd in the Atlantic. Yes, you could check for yourself with 67 points. Montreal and Boston also have 67 points. Isn't it great? That's 6. Back in my day, we had a 6-7 meme. It was to talk about how much my hockey team sucked. But on top of having to catch one of the Sabres or the Habs or the Bruins, the Leafs are now behind 6 non-playoff teams in the East. There are 28 games remaining. In the 28 games remaining, do you think that the Leafs can pass all 6 of those teams and then one of the 3 Atlantic playoff teams that I just mentioned? Or maybe one of Tampa or Detroit decides to lose every game? No! Let's say the Leafs go 20-8 over their final 28 games. That's 40 points in the standings. That would get them to 97 points. It probably gets them into the playoffs, but not guaranteed. You know what the Bruins need to get to 97? 15-12. The Habs could go 15-13. The Sabres could go 15-14. What I'm trying to say is the teams in front of the Leafs barely have to play 500 hockey the rest of the way. That's just to stave off the Leafs. That's not saying anything about the 6 other non-playoff teams in the East ahead of the Leafs. I want them to go on a Craig Berube, St. Louis Blues, Jordan Bennington 2019 run too. Is it possible? Sure. It's entirely possible. In the same way it's entirely possible the person showing you their fist like this actually has your nose. Remember how completely goofy the Leafs were after December 22nd and Mark Savard was fired? Steve Sullivan joined up. The Leafs would have to do that again with potentially more injuries than they had before. Essentially, no remaining home games. And also, they would have to do it for 28 games. And today, Leafs GM Brad Treliving was on the radio because there was an article that was published by The Athletic and Jonas Siegel basically talking about how the Leafs used to have like this big sports science department that was dedicated to preventing injuries and healing them quicker. And the guy who started that department under Lou Lamoriello, Brendan Shanahan, and all that. I think it was technically under Kyle Dubas, but like you had to sell Lou on it. The guy who headed that up left a few years ago, and then it was another guy. And then when Brendan Shanahan left less than a year ago, they just got rid of that position and never replaced it. Is it because they're dumb? No. Worse, they're cheap. But we'll get to that in a bit. And Brad Treliving went on the radio to butt actually that article. The Leafs keep looking for distractions to distract you from the fact that they're losing all these games. And it works. Like for a little minute, like we're talking about the Willie middle finger and then he apologizes and you're distracted a little bit. This article comes out and we go, oh, and then Brad Treliving has his say and we go, oh. But the problem for the Toronto Maple Leafs is those pesky games keep getting in the way and they keep losing them! Like if you want to know about the game, because I stayed up and I watched the game, I can tell you about the game. It's the exact kind of loss that would be so dismissible and forgettable and ordinary in any normal season. But knowing that the Boston Bruins, with the help of Fraser Minton, won a game, if you lose this, you're 10 points out and you're dead. Well, they're going to come out with hellfire and brimstone to start this road trip, right? Well, there was certainly hellfire because that's where we are. Matty Beniers ends up in a one-on-one situation, dead in the slot against Anthony Stolarz, and it goes through Stoli and in. The Seattle Kraken lead at home with their funny goal horn, 1-0, 81 seconds in. Or was it 82? It was 81. They couldn't make it 82. Not a great way to start. But they figured it out. They even tied it. The Leafs did not play a terrible period of hockey. They were getting their chances. They were getting their shots. They were actually peppering shots at Joey Decord. And all it took was for a puck to squirt loose. Nick Robertson, who puts his entire soul into every slap shot. It just squirted to him. He blasts the thing. It's his 12th of the season. It goes in. Leafs are tied heading into intermission. Isn't that wonderful? Maybe they'll win. Then a few minutes into the second period, and in a period that was otherwise going pretty normally, it's the Leafs in a nutshell. Can I point out something annoying that I've noticed a bunch of times this season? The Leafs could trade a bunch of guys and get good value for them, and one of them is Nick Waugh, but I kind of want them to keep him because there are so many goals this year where you could look right before the goal and there's Nick Waugh telling his line mates, hey, you're supposed to be there, dude. Poor guy, he's on the ice, but it's not his fault. Robertson, Domi, I don't care, one of ya. Seattle puts it on from the point. There's a rebound after a Stolarz save and Shane Wright pots it on the backhand. It's 2-1 and it's about to get spicy. It's not. It's not. It was such a small thing, but this is who they are. After the goal, which there's no good goal to give up, is there? You gave up a goal and you don't feel very good about it. Well, Brandon Carlo's in front, and he's tied up with Capo Kakko. And Kakko gives him a little shove. And that shove put Carlo, gently, but it still put him, onto Anthony Stolarz. Listen, this has been a long season. A long, not fun, not memorable season, but I want you to try. I want you to try really hard. I want you to go to very early on in the season. I'm talking within the first 10 games. The Leafs are at home. They're hosting the Seattle Kraken. What happens? The Kraken, I think it was Mason Marchment, who's no longer there, who crashed into Stolarz and probably wrecked his season. He kept playing a little bit, but it probably wrecked it. And Stolarz, after the game, called out his teammates for basically not sticking up for him. Who was the guy in the middle of the melee that should have been, but wasn't? It was Brandon Carlo. So here you are. Here's your chance. You're on the road. You've lost 5 straight. The home team just went up on you. Now you're down 1. He shoved you onto the goalie, onto the same goalie as last time. You have a chance to make amends right now. So what does he do? He turns around and he gives Kakko a half-hearted whack on the hockey pants. That's it. That's it. Brandon Carlo is like the perfect shelter, utterly dogless. You're 6'5" getting punked by Capo Kakko? Man, they traded the player, but he didn't take the spoke B with him. The Bruins would have never tolerated that. Ever. And that's why their rebuilds take 1 year. Well, that, and do you want to see Fraser Minton's last 15 games? 8 goals, 8 assists, 16 points, plus 15. Now, Steve, what do you want? Carlo to just grab the guy and start swinging? Yeah, I do. Well, that's not very nice. No, it isn't. Well, if he gets a penalty, then they're going to be on the penalty kill and they might get scored on and then it's 2-1 and then it's 3-1. I bet you wouldn't like that. Oh, that's a good point. I bet I wouldn't. Well, you don't have to worry about that because the Kraken would score again 31 seconds later. Like the strike of a match. The Kraken attack with speed. Michelli doesn't really get his guy, a point that Justin Bourne hammered over and over and over again on the broadcast. And from there, it's basically an odd man rush, and Seattle's able to bury it. This one was Montour. Congratulations to all the Brandon Montour fantasy holders out there. It's 3-1. It's over. And in typical Leaf fashion, no, it isn't. Not quite. Like, almost exactly an entire period of hockey later. It's the third period. The Leafs are on the power play. Morgan Rielly scores a power play goal on a nice shot. Let's go Mo. 2.5 minutes later, you can talk about whatever breakdown you want. This is a beautiful shot, top corner, short side from Shane Wright. Leafs aren't really able to get anything done because they no matter how good or bad they look, they wilt. They wilt. Jared McCann gets the empty netter. It's over. You lose. So did they lose, like, because Capo Caco gave Brandon Carlo the tiniest of nudges? No. But, like, what are you? Okay, you score goals. You didn't really this game, but you score goals. You are the worst defensive catastrophe abomination in the National League. And are you tough? Nope. Nope. You're the same meek little pushovers that you've been consistently and reliably getting your bottoms patted by teams that are actually worth their salt, like the Boston Bruins and the Florida Panthers. And Craig Berube's Blues would have killed you. Like, any team worth being over the last decade, you don't play like them. Every minute Brad Treliving spent on the phone today doing that interview with TSN was a moment he could have been working the phones trying to get something done. The Leafs' last trade was for Dakota Joshua with the Vancouver Canucks, July 17th. How many days? Don't worry, I checked. 197 days ago. All while going through what is far and away their worst season in a decade. They got Caden Primo off waivers, then lost them. They got Sammy Blais off waivers, then lost them. They got Troy Stecher off waivers. That is the end of the transactions list. Oh, it's okay. They've given, like, long, auditions to guys from the Marlies, right? No. Do they still put missing people's photos on milk cartons? Okay, that was my first question. Follow up. Do we have a nice photo of Jacob Quillen? Oh, we do? Good. Thank you. Oh, sorry. I think there's a mistake. This is actually Callie Yarncroke again. And the question that I keep getting asked, okay, so the Leafs are selling. Fine. Trade deadline's not until March 5th. They got lots of time. You should get in on it, though. You should get in on it. Do you want Brad Treliving making those trades? I told you the story that I told you. It's hard to be like someone who did such an astronomically nice thing. It's hard to be like, yeah, fire that guy. Do I have any faith based on the way things have gone? No. Should I? Why? Listen, I've been through this. The Leafs have 5 assistant GMs. 5. Dubas and Mark Hunter actually did a pretty good job trading guys for assets when the Leafs had no GM officially, and it was 2 assistant GMs running the show. But it's getting late early. You got like a week left until the Olympic trade deadline kicks in. And then obviously during the Olympic break, you can have calls with all these GMs, keeping in mind that a ton of them are actually going to be in Europe. Hours difference, weird times, and they're going to be focused on the Olympics. I think a lot of business is going to get done in the next few days. And if it's not you, that's a failure. You're selling. You don't got to call it retooling. You don't got to call it rebuilding. I don't think it's a rebuild. But you're 10 points out and playing like crap. What are we preserving? Now, today, I'm asking solemnly, what are we preserving? Tomorrow, I'm saying, make a trade! The Caps are down both goalies after tonight's game. Strike while the iron's hot. Which Leafs goalie do you offer up? Hey, Washington. Was hoping to offer you something. So we got a goalie who just got back from injury. He looks awful. We got another goalie who's often coming back from injury, but he's actually healthy right now. No, he's awful too. And then we got a cheap, like, up-and-coming minor leaguer that if we trade him, Steve's going to lose his mind. So which one would you like? I don't think the Leafs should trade a goalie until at least the offseason. Hildeby doesn't require waivers. Wool and Stolarz both need to find their game you hold those guys for now. Seeing as your audience typically grows exponentially with Leaf losses, has the recent run led to diminishing returns view-wise? Or have they continued growing as others like me check out on a dog water team? You know what's funny? The views were amazing in the fall when they were garbage, and then they started winning games and the views were garbage, but I was happy, and now the team is garbage again. And I'm unhappy, but the views are up. Because you might be checking out, but there's an ocean of like Habs and Bruins fans who are like, we're checking in. Do you think the Leafs should start tanking on purpose to try their luck at the draft lottery? No. I think they should sell players who make sense to sell, and as for tanking, they're doing fine on their own. This isn't something they need to intentionally try. In fact, they've done such a bad job with everything for so long, I think if they tried to tank, they would automatically become the hottest team in the league. Now, I said the Leafs were cheap. And I saw some people being confused by that because they're like, well, they're a cap team. And they're also like, well, they have 5 assistant general managers. You just said it. So here's the thing. You ever go to a game? You can see how the prices are exorbitant? Do you see how they keep going up? Yeah, well, that's what all that money goes toward. But the word is that the Leafs don't want to fire guys because, well, you have to pay the guys that you fire to not work for you. And then sometimes you got to hire a replacement. Or, in the case of your sports science department, you just leave it. And that struck a nerve with me and made me very upset to hear that. Remember when they fired Mike Babcock? There were all these whispers about, well, we don't want to pay Mike Babcock all this money not to be our head coach. Okay, but he's doing bad though, and you fire coaches who do bad. I've said this on the podcast a million times. I read the Rodgers versus Rodgers book, which talks about Ed Rodgers essentially going to war with his family. Ed Rodgers is the head of Rodgers, who own the Blue Jays and most of Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment. And there was an article that just came out tonight. They want to get more of Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment. And in his business world, like running a telecom company, not sports entities, running like charging you out the butt for your phone bill and your internet and your cable and whatever, he has no problem hiring and firing guys and paying them literally millions of dollars to go away, like an executive named Joe Natale. Oh, Joey Christmas. And a lot of it has to do with ego. And so you read that, and you read the amount of money. It's a psychotic amount of money. I don't remember what it was. It was like it was 8 digits. It was a lot. You read those numbers, and you're like, you won't make a decision that needs to be made for a struggling hockey team that you own, and the price keeps going up. Oh, well, they spend to the cap. The spending to the cap is the least the Toronto Maple Leafs could do. The Toronto Maple Leafs? We're patting the Toronto Maple Leafs on the back for spending to the cap. Okay. Anyway, we'll get into it more on the podcast tomorrow, which, by the way, we have a podcast tomorrow. My friends, that is it for this one. Thank you very much for watching. It's almost 2. Click like if you like this video. Click subscribe if you really liked it. Tell your friends. Hockey Night in Canada. Leafs, Canucks in 2026. Oh my God.